Okay, currently our situation is, if we apply a filter to our members, and then we click on a member, and then we go back to our matches, we've lost our filter. That's probably not the behavior we're looking for. So what we can do is we can go back to VS Code and fix this as well. And let's go to our member list component to see what we're doing inside there. And what we're doing when we construct this particular component is we're creating a new instance of our user params. But what if we did this inside our service? Would it be remembered then? Well, of course, our service is a singletons. And we could create these user params inside our service. They're not going to disappear, they're not going to be destroyed anytime we move from this component to our member detail component or anywhere else in our app. They're going to be remembered. And what we need to do is we're going to need to inject our account service into our member service and then do effectively the same as what we're doing here so that we create the user params inside the service. So let's head over to our member service, and inside here we can inject services into services. That's fine, but we have to be careful about circular references, and if we inject our account service into our member service, then if we try and inject our member service into our account service, then we'll have a problem. But as long as we don't do that, then we can do this. So we'll say private account service, and then let's just go to our member list component, and we'll just copy all of this and paste this inside our member service constructor. And we'll need to bring a few things in. We need to bring in the take operator, and we need to create a user property inside our service. So we'll say user of type user. And we'll also need our user params inside here as well. So we'll say user params and user params. And what we'll do inside here is we'll just add a couple of helper methods so we can get and set these user params. So what we'll do, we'll just do this at the top so we can see them easily. We'll say get user params, and we'll return this.userparams. And we'll also add another helper method called set user params. And inside here we'll say this.userparams equals, and we'll pass the params in as a parameter. So we'll say params, and then we'll set this to params. And we can give this some help and say that this is going to be a type of our user params. And then what we can do is we can head across to our member list components, and we can remove all of this now. We don't need this in here anymore. And we also don't need our account service inside here. And what we can do is we can set our user params inside this constructor, but we're going to get them from the service. So what we'll do is we'll say this.userparams equals this.memberService, and we'll say get user params. And we're still updating these inside our components. So if a user selects a filter, then we're going to need to update the user params inside the service. So what we'll do inside our load members, before we actually go and get the members, what we'll do is we'll say this.memberService.setUserParams, and we'll say this.userParams. And then we also need to take care of our reset filters here. And we need to reset this from the service as well. So let's go back to our member service, and what we'll do is we'll create another helper method in here, and we'll say reset user params, and we'll say this.userParams equals new user params, and we'll say this.user to reset the parameters, and then we'll just return from this method so that our component has access to them, the user params. So we'll go back to our member list component, and what we'll do is we'll say list.userParams equals this.memberService, and we'll say reset user params, and then we can just go ahead and load the members again. And what we also need to do in our page change, so we remember this as well, is we'll say after we've got the page number from the component, we'll say list.memberService set user params, and say list.userParams. And this should be all we need to do. So let's go take a look, and we'll head back to our browser and go to the matches page, and let's click on mails and apply filters, and if we go and visit Bob and then go back to matches, then we've kept our filter. If we change the age to 50, and we'll click on Davis, and then we go back to matches, then we've kept our filters in place, and if we reset filters, then we go back to females, everything's reset. Obviously any new queries we make are going to call the API, but what we should find now is that any time we make a request, unless we refresh our browser, we're going to keep these queries in memory. So we're done. And let's just check our console, because we're done with this particular section now. And as per always, we do want a clean browser or clean console whenever we're doing anything inside here. And this looks pretty good. So we're going to call this job done for this particular section. We're going to head back to VS Code. We'll close our open tabs. And we've made quite a significant amount of changes in this particular section. It was quite a big one. And what we'll do is we'll say end of section 13. And what we'll do is we'll stage our changes and we'll commit. And then we're going to go ahead and push these up to GitHub. And we'll wrap this up with a summary.